Hi, and welcome to Infertility Unfiltered, where fertility experts and warriors are joining forces to provide you with tips, tricks, facts, information, and inspiration so you can take back control of your life and get your baby on board. Hi, I'm Jennifer Robertson, and today we are very blessed to be joined by Amira Posner. Now, Amira is a clinical social worker who works with individuals and couples who are struggling with infertility. Amira developed and now facilitates the Mind Body Fertility Group and Fab Fertile Mindfulness Fertility Group. She's a certified hypnotherapist and Reiki practitioner, but it was Amira's personal experience with infertility that was the catalyst for her starting her business, Healing Infertility. Now, today we're going to be talking about stress, because we all know that stress is one of the biggest roadblocks in terms of fertility. So she's going to share with us some tips that she uses, some techniques that she uses with her clients. She's going to share them with us today. So I would love to welcome you, Amira Posner.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's so good to be here and talk to you, even though we're on opposite sides of the world.
I love technology. Now, before we start talking about stress and some techniques that we can use to reduce it, I would love for you to share just a little bit about yourself and what led you down this path.
Yeah, so it was actually my own journey with secondary infertility that started 11 years ago. So we had conceived our daughter, and that was not an issue. And it was when we were trying for number two that it was a problem. And I'm the type A personality, and I was really, it was not good when it wasn't working, and I took control, and we went to my family doctor, and a few months later we were referred to the fertility clinic, and we discovered that we were dealing with male factor. As well, I had a number of little small issues, when they go looking, they find something. And so we ended up doing IVF, and we were successful and had twins. And I know I make it sound really easy, but it wasn't. It was really difficult to go through. And I'm a social worker by profession, and I knew if I get through this, that this was going to be my area of work, and I would want to help others get through it, because I didn't remember there being a lot of emotional support.
And do you feel like, especially with the secondary infertility as well, like I find that perhaps there's an extra layer of guilt around secondary, because people's reactions are more around, well, you should be grateful for what you have, and then you feel guilty because you should be grateful for what you have, and there's less support around it.
So complicated, and so there's so many layers, and I've written a lot about like my experience, and go along with that, you need to be more social because you have one child that you need to take out, so it's dealing with all those triggers, and it gets complicated, and it's a hard journey, and everybody's journey is different. And so I'm so grateful that I came out alive. And so when the twins turned two, I started running a support group, and it was very grassroots, and it was out of my parents' condominium amenity room. And I just saw how wonderful it was to bring these women together and talk about their common issue and support each other. And then I also brought the mind body techniques to help them as an outlet to channel their anxiety and stress.
And that's what this journey is all about, really, isn't it? It's about the anxiety and stress. For me, that was the biggest thing. I think the biggest hurdle that I really faced. Obviously, there's the medical side of things as well, but it really was the emotional toll that it takes on your body.
Totally. And the uncertainty, right? And the discomfort, and just not having that control.
Absolutely.
Right?
And so let's talk about stress. So firstly, let's talk about stress and the impact that it has on our body, and then let's dig into some actual techniques that we can use to reduce our stress levels.
Yeah, so I'm sure, because we do a similar work, and I need to be really careful when we talk about stress, because I don't like to make it sound like you're doing this to yourself, or you're have all these negative thoughts, or you're working 9 to 5, and all these things are going to stress you. Stress is inevitable. Like, we can't get rid of stress. It's everywhere.
Mhm.
And so there's actually an upside to stress. And there's a psychologist, and I don't know if you've heard of her. She's wonderful. Her name's Kelly McGonigal, and she talks about stress and how we can use it to like benefit us, right?
Okay.
But when we're dealing with infertility, it's like prolonged stress, and that has an impact, you know, an impact on how we feel, right? And we start to feel depressed and depleted, and maybe our body then doesn't respond as well. And so it's changing our relationship to stress and doing things that can help us release stress and help us feel different about it,
I
right? We
love
can't
that.
get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do we do that? Like how do we change our relationship to stress so it's not something that we fear, but something that we can actually use to our advantage?
Yeah, it's like an active process. I mean, there's things that we can do actually actively and start to build, like create boundaries around our lives and take more time for ourselves. And then there's things we can do that are more passive, like with the body relaxation and the hypnosis and the mindfulness, right? And so it's kind of changing the way we're relating to the infertility, and we're relating to ourselves,
Mhm. So where
right?
do
And
we start? Where do we start with that? Can you go through some of the techniques that you use? I know that you mentioned, you know, visualization and imagery and you are a hypnotherapist. So can you walk us through some of those?
yeah, so visualization and imagery are really, really integral. And when I meet with clients one on one, sometimes I find it amazing that some women haven't like it's just at that first session that I bring them sort of inside themselves, and they can think about like what their womb looks like and their ovaries, and make an image that they can actually see in their mind. And that's important. And that's how we connect to our body, right? And that's one way of visualization. But then there's also having that visualization of what it is that you want, and that's a baby, maybe two babies. But what is it that you want? And for some, it's really hard to go there and imagine that, and that's okay. So what is it that you can feel comfortable visualizing? Maybe just feeling calm and connected, or maybe just feeling strong as you go through the fertility treatment. And so it's coming up with something that you can hold on to, and maybe making a vision board to put it all together and look at it every day.
And I
Or
think that sometimes we're a little bit resistant to that because it creates this hope inside of us. And that's something that we really try to avoid when we're on this journey. It is hope, you know, because if we picture it too clearly and it doesn't happen, we feel like it's going to hurt a whole lot more. And so that's what
right,
the vision board and everything, I guess, is just putting it all out there and opening ourselves up to the idea and the
right.
possibility of it happening.
Right. I think there's like that natural mechanism that takes over to try to protect ourselves, right? In case like it's not successful. But I like to really make a distinction, because sometimes I'll meet with women, and it seems to me like they're experiencing their journey like it's like the end, and they've just started, right? So it's coming to some kind of homeostasis,
Mhm.
some balance, so that they can feel okay to move forward and feel better. And, there's other techniques like mindfulness, which I'm sure you use, which, is a technique that helps us to become more present. So we're
Mhm.
not thinking so much about the future, and we're not worrying about what's already happened, right? And that's a practice, and that's something that in my groups we do together, and we learn how to do. And once you start doing it, that's a way to channel some of the angst like we talked about, and some of the things that you can't control,
Yeah.
right?
And so what are some ways that they can channel that need for control in? Like where can they still get that control but in a helpful and productive way?
Right. So I think acknowledging that there's parts we can't control and parts we can, right? And so what can we control? What are some of the things that are in our control? And that's listening to this podcast, right? To try to better the experience or better their mindset, what we put in our bodies, how we move our bodies, what fertility clinic we choose, whether we do acupuncture or not, right? And so
Yeah.
making those choices, taking time for ourselves.
Absolutely. What other suggestions do you have in terms of stress release?
So one of the things that interestingly, we do actually laughter yoga. Have you heard of that?
I haven't, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah, so we do laugh, and it's not like yoga. It's more like a fun, playful activity, and you've never laughed so hard in your life. It starts to hurt right here and at the back of your head because you can't stop laughing, and it's such a release. And like when you're laughing and when someone tells you a joke and you laugh so hard for those few seconds, it's really such a release and just being so present. Like you're not thinking of anything else but how funny that was.
I love that.
Right?
Yes, I've heard of laughing classes that you can go to, but I haven't heard of laughing yoga. I love the
Yeah.
idea. I absolutely, yeah, that's
Yeah,
absolutely
there's
amazing.
like there's a bunch of different routines that they teach you, and you play with your arm. It's really, really something.
Because I think play is really important as well. And I think as we get older, as we get responsibilities and all of those different things, play is something that kind of goes off the radar. And I was reading the other day that the opposite of play is depression. So I think that that's something that we really have to integrate as well, is just that play. And it sounds like the laughing is a big, part of that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not gonna be our natural state,
Mhm.
right? Because we're in a funk. So we need to sort of put our energy towards cultivating that and remembering what joy feels like and putting our phones away and spending time in nature. And, prayer is really important,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
right?
and
Just
other things to raise your vibration as well. Like I'm a big fan of music. Like music therapy is a great way to raise your vibration. If you're in a little bit of a funk, dancing, all of those
yeah,
different things that you can actually
right.
get up. So dancing, laughing, moving, singing, great ways.
You might have to push yourself at first, but I think after you do it, you feel that like energetic lift and it changes your mood, right? It's all connected,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I
right?
think it's
And
also about providing yourself with permission that you don't have to always be in this high vibration state, because that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, don't we? To act a certain way, to think a certain way, to be a certain way. When on this journey, it's exhausting, trying to make ourselves be positive all the time. I think that that's a big part of it as well, is
yeah, no,
acknowledging
that's
that
not
we don't have to.
realistic. No, it's like acknowledging that this is difficult. And, one of another technique or approach is using self-compassion, right? And just being, imagine, it was a friend who was talking to you about this struggle, and you would be so kind to her and offer her support and genuinely feel sympathetic. But for some reason, we don't feel those same ways about ourselves and our own struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So putting ourselves in the opposite seat and thinking about how we would treat our friend and then treat ourselves the same way.
Yeah, we have to be included in that compassion,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Any other these are great techniques. Any other
I
techniques that
always
you've
like
got?
to think, like you're the vessel, right? You're the vessel that's going to get to hold on and carry the baby. And so you want to try to nurture and nourish yourself. And so it's like a whole picture, and it's a divine timing, and we don't know when, but instead of seeing each month as, okay, this wasn't successful, it was a failure, it's still 1 month more towards 1 month further towards you where you want to be. Right? So
Absolutely.
it's playing with our perspective and trying to see the big picture, which, as you know, you don't always get to understand until you come full circle, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other pieces of wisdom that you would love to share with anyone who's struggling at the moment?
I just want to tell you guys that you're not alone. And here in Canada, it's 1 in 6 couples struggling. I don't know what the stats are in Australia, right?
Mm.
But it's a lot of people and it's very common, and you will get through this. I promise. And you will be stronger for it.
Absolutely. I love that. Great pieces of advice. Thank you so much for joining us, Amira Posner. Now, how can
You.
people get in contact with you after this?
You can check out my website. I'm at healinginfertility.ca.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a lot of writings and different publications about mindfulness and stress and coping techniques. So go take a look, and you can always email me if you have any questions.
And I'll put your details in the notes below this video as well. So thank you so much for joining
Amazing.
us. It's been
Thank
a pleasure
you.
talking to you.
You too.
And
Take care.
thank you. And thank you for joining us as well. So if you enjoyed this video as much as I did, please feel free to give it a little love, share it, like it, and make sure you subscribe to this channel as well, because this is just one of many amazing discussions that we have to help you survive infertility, not only survive it, but thrive it. So thank you so much for watching.